Hi, everybody. We're going to just give everybody a minute to join. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. I think we're just going to go ahead and kick off here. My name's Alex Schulberg. I'm one of the NREL Prize Administrators for the Digitizing Utilities Prize, and we're excited for a great webinar today. Our hope is by the end of today's presentation, you will have all the information that you need to be successful in the Digitizing Utilities Prize. We'll also have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of today's presentation. So before we get started, there's a few housekeeping items of note that I wanted to point out. As mentioned, there's going to be a Q&A session after this presentation, but if you have any questions during the presentation, please post them in the chat throughout. We'll be responding to all the questions in written form and posting those responses on HeroX moving forward. This webinar is going to be recorded and posted online. You'll get notification of when that's available. So anything you might have missed, you can always watch at a later time. In this webinar, Sandra Jenkins from the Department of Energy's Office of Electricity is going to give an introduction to the Office of Electricity. Then there will be a brief overview of the American-Made Challenges program, followed by an overview of this prize, Digitizing Utilities, during which Tony Ferris from Bonneville Power Association will add some of the information about the first track of the prize, and Kevin Jones from Dominion Energy will add some information about the second track. We'll then go over eligibility, important dates. We'll go over HeroX a little bit, and then some time for Q&A. Before we dive into all the details on the prize, I want to turn things over to Sandra Jenkins. She's with the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Electricity, who is graciously supporting this prize. And I will turn it over to Sandra to kick things off.
Great, thank you, Alec. So as Alec has said, I am Sandra Jenkins from the Office of Electricity, and that is part of the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy is very large, and the Office of Electricity is only one of many offices. So I figured I would start off by explaining a little bit about how we fit into this large energy ecosystem. So with how energy is delivered to consumers, we have sources of electricity generation, like wind, solar, nuclear, fossil. There are offices that deal with those generation sources, like EERE, does with energy efficiency and renewable energy. On the nuclear side, we have Office of Nuclear Energy, Fossil Energy, which is now Fossil Energy and Carbon Management. And then on the consumer side, there is, end uses, which is really that energy efficiency side of EERE. And in the middle of all that is how we get energy from bulk electricity generation to the loads and the demand for that electricity. And that is what the Office of Electricity works on, both transmission and distribution, ensuring that power gets from point A to point B through all the different infrastructure we have across the United States and all the different markets and payment mechanisms that everybody has. We don't own or operate any of that. Really, we do research and development in this scope. Next slide. I have a couple programs within the Office of Electricity, and I'll just give a very high-level overview of this. So transmission reliability and renewable integration is one of the topics we do a lot of research into the development of advanced applications, decision support systems, so really kind of studying operations and alarming and queuing, better visualizations for grid operators. They're the folks who really do the heavy lifting of making sure the power gets where it's going. And so we do research into making sure they have good tools and modern tools to address their challenges. And the next slide on another program we have is the Sensors and Data Analytics program. This is really where a lot of the work relevant to this prize came out of. We have some work on enhanced distribution system resilience and control. So utilizing sensors on the distribution system to improve visibility, but also controllability of assets. Research into data integration and event detection, utilizing a whole host of different tools and mathematical methods. And lastly, but not least, is really trying to study the valuation, validation, and standards related to sensing and data. Next slide. So these two programs cover quite a bit of space, but at a high level, they address data quality at the source, utilize existing data sources for better visibility and control, and demonstrate tools for reliability and resilience. So really taking data from the really early stage of generating that data, both on the transmission system and the distribution system, and then utilizing new tools to better allow operational flexibility and improve reliability, and then demonstrate those tools with utility partners. Next slide. One of the things that our office is just wrapping up was a large FOA, which is a funding opportunity announcement called FOA 1861. This work was big data analysis of synchrophaser data. Synchrophasers are a type of sensor on the transmission system. And as a part of this FOA, we collected a very large amount of this data. It's data that happens every 60 times a second. So, and that we collected over a course of 2 years over the entire United States. So it was a lot of data, and made that data set available to some researchers as a part of this FOA. And we learned quite a few things from that. The researchers went through a whole host of different steps, including cleaning that data because it was real measurement and not always super nice. We had feature engineering, event detection, event classification, and supporting tools all around this data developed as a part of this FOA. One of the things that was kind of a challenge is that we kind of ran across was that this data, in order to collect it and make it available to researchers, we had to anonymize it. So it didn't have locational information and a whole host of other stuff that would have been useful that utilities do have, but this was the compromise to allowing it to be public. The analysis that was done kind of led us to a couple high-level challenges. There are multiple steps required to get the value of data from the power system, and utilities aren't always able to get through all of those hoops. Some of these sensors were deployed during the Recovery Act funding, and so that was more about getting hardware in the ground. But getting the value out of that hardware takes these multiple steps. It can be difficult for developers to obtain real data for research due to confidentiality. And that's a little bit of what the SOA addressed, but what we hope to address more in this prize. And lastly, the demonstrated value of data at utilities for business practices is required for cost recovery. So this is a little bit of the chicken or the egg challenge that utilities have, is that in order to show the value of the data that they have, they need to have analytics and tools to get the value out of that data. But in order to fund the development of those things, they need to have already demonstrated the value. These are all some of the things that we hope to address in this prize. Next slide. I think that's it though. Yeah, so that's my introduction to our DOE Office of Electricity, and I will hand it over to Alec.
Great, thank you so much, Sandra. So I would like to get started with a brief overview of the American-Made challenges and the American-Made network. The American-Made program is really proud to host the Digitizing Utilities Prize and happy to count it among one of our many prize challenges. For those of you unfamiliar with the American-Made program, it's powered by DOE and administered by the National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL, to incentivize innovation through prizes, training, teaming, and mentoring. The American-Made program serves as a fast track to participating in the clean energy economy, connecting the nation's entrepreneurs and innovators to America's national labs and the private sector. The American-Made program started 4 years ago with just one prize. Today, American-Made has grown to over 36 unique prize challenges. It currently represents more than 16 offices within the U.S. Department of Energy, over 300 organizations, and we've given out over $100 million in cash prizes and support. Thanks to rapid timelines and goals, prizes fast-tracked product development from years to months by enabling rapid innovation cycles and creating partnerships that connect entrepreneurs to the private sector and the U.S. Department of Energy's national laboratories. So one of the questions we get is why a prize and why not a grant? So what's the difference between a grant and a prize? Grants have all these steps on the left of the screen, and you often have to negotiate over milestones. And if you change something, it must be reviewed. It can be a very long and arduous process. With the American-Made challenges, we have the prize structure, which awards work already done. You don't have to jump through the hoops required of the grant process, but rather you just need to achieve the predefined goals of the prize and to complete the submission package. It's fast with no strings attached. You decide how to use your prize winnings. Okay, so let's get into the Digitizing Utilities Prize. The goal of this prize is to connect utilities with interdisciplinary teams of software developers and data experts to facilitate transforming digital systems in the energy sector and data analytics for utilities. Okay, so to get into the Digitizing Utilities Prize structure, it contains two phases, plan and progress. In phase one, plan, teams of developers, which will be software engineers or software developers, automation engineers, data scientists, etc., will form robust teams that are willing to solve one of the utility's issues presented. Teams demonstrate that they have an understanding of the problem and propose how they would solve the problem. In phase two, progress, teams implement their proposed solution by developing a software solution that addresses the issues presented by the utilities. Teams also demonstrate how their methods and process could be utilized by other utilities in the future. In phase one, there will be up to 9 winners who will receive a cash prize of $75,000, and they will be eligible to compete in phase two. In phase two, one winner from each utility partner will be selected as a winner and will receive a prize of $100,000 each. One grand prize winner will be selected from these winners to receive an additional $125,000 cash prize. Competitors will select to compete in one of 3 tracks for this prize. The first two tracks each have a predetermined utility partner providing a data or digitization challenge to be solved. Competitors respond directly to the challenge outlined in the appendices of the rules document. The predetermined utility partners alleviates the burden on the competitors interested in solving these problems to identify and connect with a utility on their own. The third track allows for competitors to identify their own utility partner and data or digitization challenge. Teams in the third track, which we call competitor identified, can be led by either a utility or an independent team that has a pre-existing partnership with the utility. All the tracks will have the same submission requirements and scoring criteria. However, competitors in track 3, competitor identified, should also include information about the problem they are addressing and why it's important. It's anticipated that there will be up to 3 winners for each track in phase 1. Utility partners will participate in the review of the process for tracks 1 and 2. Track 3 will be reviewed by industry experts. All winner decisions will be made by the U.S. Department of Energy. In track 1, competitors will use load modeling to help correctly forecast future power demands, specifically addressing the dynamic nature of weather-sensitive loads for the residential and commercial buildings. To provide a little bit more information on track 1, I'm going to turn things over to Anthony Ferris from Bonneville Power Association.
All right. Thank you, Alec. BPA's request or proposal is really divided up into 4 separate tasks that are outlined there. And the actual document goes through in a lot of detail, but I'll provide sort of a summary of each one of these in the following slides. As we're looking through those, one of the things that is important to note is that this is sort of a dual partnership between BPA and Clark PUD, which is the local utility up here in Vancouver, Washington. They're really excited and interested in joining us in this effort, and they're the ones who will be providing a lot of the data to support the work. Before we go through those detailed slides, I would just like to sort of mention that we're really looking for partners in this effort. We're not looking at this as work that we're sort of farming out and hoping to get a result at the end of the process. We're really looking for people who are interested in working with us, not necessarily for us, to produce results and to develop sort of a long-term relationship as we start looking ahead past the period of this project and really into the future. Next slide, please. So the first of the 4 tasks is looking at weather sensitivity. So this is addressing the way that loads change based off of varying not just temperature, but also humidity and also other weather type events. So part of this is really intuitive, right? So summer day, temperature goes up, you expect an increase in load. But the challenge really comes in quantifying that load or change in load and modeling that change in load so that it's repeatable and reliable as we start modeling what our grid will do based off of different type of weather events and weather days. So the first task is to look at this weather sensitivity or look at the data that we've collected over months, years during various weather events and over the historical the historical data that we've collected and develop a model of weather sensitivity correlating the weather conditions and end use loads. Next slide, please. The second task has to do with electrification and estimating the amount or number of buildings for a given area that have certain types of electrical loads. Again, as it's sort of intuitively obvious, this change in load, say for a hot day, is largely based off of the number of buildings for a given area that have air conditioning. So this example that you're seeing on the screen is 2 substations that are located very near each other, one with a large penetration of air conditioning and the other one with a lower penetration. As you can see, the substation 1 on the left has a high increase in load when the temperature rises, and the substation on the right essentially levels off and has very little increase at high temperatures. And this difference is caused by the AC saturation. Now, unfortunately, the information for a given area, say for a specific feeder or a substation, is not readily available. So it's it's not easy for a utility to look up the number of homes that have air conditioning necessarily. So we may have to estimate this given the data that we have. So this is this task is really looking at essentially reverse engineering the measurement information that we have and trying to get a good estimation of the buildings that have electrical heating, electrical cooling, and electrical water heating, et cetera. So those that are electrified versus, or the rates at which they're electrified for a given area. Next slide, please. Task 3 is now to take that information that we have and now look at future electrification. So the first two tasks are primarily looking at how do we model the current situation that we're in? How do we model our current substations? How do we model our weather sensitivities? This third task is looking at, now that we have that information, or if we do have that information, how do we look ahead? So this is looking at increases in electric vehicles, in residential and commercial heat pumps, changes in technology, changes in building codes, retrofitting old buildings with new technology, or with replacing natural gas with electric heating, increases in air conditioning, et cetera. And how do these impact the loads that we see? And this is really looked at in a couple of different ways. I mean, one is on a very looking at the numbers themselves. So looking at the meter data, looking at how our loads are going to change given certain electrification scenarios. And the second is looking at how realistic these scenarios are, looking at incentive programs at both the state and federal level. How likely are people to adopt new electrical technologies and the impact that they're going to have? So on the one hand, it's looking at things from a very sort of data-driven method, and on the other hand, it's also looking at sort of the change in perception and the change in adoption and sort of the human nature factor that's incorporated into future electrification. Next slide, please. And the final task will be to project across regions across the nation. So the variability in weather sensitivity and electrification and incentive programs, there's a lot of variability that goes into a lot of these tasks. So the first three tasks are going to be primarily focused on the Northwest and Bonneville Power, specifically our area. But as you start branching out or moving beyond the scope of the Northwest, what happens when we address really extreme hot or cold climate zones? How do we look at the saturation of natural gas versus electric penetration across the United States, which is variable depending on the region that you're in? How do we look at state-by-state future electrification efforts? The West is much more aggressive in terms of electrification than other portions of the country. So how do we develop realistic scenarios for other portions of the country? So really the idea is to take what we learn from the Northwest and really apply it on a national scope. And I think that's all that I have. So I'll pass it back to Alec.
Great, thanks, Tony. In track 2, competitors will propose methods for automation of data analysis to help engineers scrutinize and evaluate a data-driven approach to resolving nuanced complexities across the system. To provide a little bit more information on track 2, I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Jones from Dominion Energy.
Thanks, Alec. How's my audio?
Sound good.
Excellent. So I thought I'd start by talking a bit about our underlying motivation. And I see a layered set of values for Dominion to participate in this prize. I think it's a really special in how it's structured. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. And I would even rank the layers of value from good to better to best. So at the base layer, yes, we're gonna do some work together. We're going to accelerate the build out of some of our technology roadmap internally. But I don't actually think that that's the most valuable thing that's going to come out of this endeavor. And I think that teams that understand that will see greater success with us. And so what do I mean? Well, in addition to having work done for us or with us, to use Tony's words, we want to look for relationships that are going to transcend the competition itself, right? Find people that want to be part of our quote unquote virtual team. And as part of that, I think that both Dominion and the DOE, the industry at large, can then learn how to construct these type of incentive structures so that we can collaborate at a large scale, both with industry experts, but also with the outsiders that we're really interested in working with. And I want to underscore this with an observation that it's very, very difficult for the electric utilities to not only hire, but also retain advanced technical talent, particularly when it comes to work supporting digital transformation initiatives, to the point that even typical power systems engineers are getting poached from utilities to go work at tech companies. And while tech hiring has gone down, I see this as a macro trend that will continue. And so I think for us to be successful in our digital transformation efforts, we're going to have to look for very creative ways of collaboration that might not look like traditional engagements. So I think that is the single most important thing that's going to come out of this, and we're glad to help with that. Next slide, please. I apologize for the bulk of text. The last time I did this, we went through them one by one, but I'll walk you through it here again. So what are we looking for in terms of a team? So number one, we want people that differentiate in the type of data that they're interested in working in. We want people that are excited about high resolution and ultra high resolution sensor data, so synchrophasors and waveform data. It's very frustrating when we engage with third parties that treat all data uniformly and don't understand both the unique challenges and the unique opportunities. Second thing is, we're not looking for someone to come in and play hero. We're actually pretty good at what we're doing, and so we're looking for a peer group. We're looking for collaborators. We're looking for people that can complement and augment things that we're doing already. Really, what we're looking for is a way to scale things that we're already doing, and you'll see that a little bit in the next slide. Next thing is, what we do is very niche. It's very, very niche. It's unlikely that anyone's going to come in with the exact skill set needed to succeed. So we need highly motivated teams, highly motivated individuals that are able to quickly self-educate under our guidance. Also, we're not looking for proposals that have fancy or exotic solutions. You know, if a linear regression is the right answer, then that's great. We don't have any type of technology fetish. We want practical, scalable approaches. And to that point, we're not looking for any type of black box machine learning approach. We want domain knowledge coupled with those interdisciplinary skills that Alec was alluding to. And our wish list, and obviously everyone's not going to have all of these, but backgrounds in physics, signal processing, control theory, statistics, time series data analysis, but fundamentally things that require physical intuition of complex interdependent systems. And then lastly, and this is an important one, we're not looking for custom architecture solutions or cloud infrastructure solutions. Our data is going to stay put. It's going to stay exactly where it is. You will come in and work in our ecosystem. And I can promise you, you'll have everything that you'll need. In fact, we have some of the coolest toys that exist out there right now to play with this kind of data. So you will not want for anything. So that, hopefully that clarifies some of the boundaries of who we're looking to engage with. Next slide, please. Okay, now on to more of the content or the substance of what we want to work on. So at Dominion, we believe that we're championing what I call a paradigm shift in how we're studying grid dynamics. And to describe that, we should first talk about how it is right now. So generally speaking, when we think about high resolution data and its value, you're thinking about it from an events perspective, looking at discrete episodic events and their individual details and characteristics. And that's all well and good, right? That's perfectly fine. there's also even a real-time operations perspective for thinking about events. But the problem with events is that they're very rare. So they're very interesting, but they're very rare. We believe, and what we've proved empirically, is that ambient data, so basically all of the data for all time, for all space, is dramatically underrated. It's very rich. And what you get when you look at it is actually omnipresent, variable, multidimensional grid dynamics that have real and direct impact on the way that the assets on the grid are going to perform. More specifically, this type of unmanaged grid dynamics will contribute to a substantially less effective clean energy transition. We've got dozens of case studies that demonstrate this. So our motivation for work in the space is really driven by the pursuit of excellence in our work for carbon emissions reduction. And in doing so, what we're claiming is that if we're excellent in these ways, we can minimize the growth in the cost of energy. So there's a direct line to green, clean energy from this work. So we think it's very exciting. Really looking forward to seeing what the teams can put together, and looking forward to working alongside of you all. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Great, thank you, Kevin. We'll go on to track 3. In track 3, teams with an existing utility partner apply with their own digitization or data challenge and propose their plan for solving it. Proposed challenges and solutions must have an implementation path within the utility they are working with. There are several examples of topics that teams can address in the rules document. However, it is not limited to just those topics. Please see the rules document for more information. In this track, competitors must include a letter of support from the utility they're working with. Okay, so who can compete in this prize? We're looking for software developers, automation engineers, data scientists, and overall experts in data analytics and software development. Our rules document goes through the eligibility criteria in more detail. This competition is open to individuals, teams of individuals, private entities, for-profit, nonprofits, non-federal government entities, and academic institutions. The entities must be incorporated in and maintain a primary place of business in the U.S. Academic institutions must be based in the U.S. Again, please see the rules document for more details. Okay, so on to important dates and events. The most important date coming up is January 26th, 2023. This is the deadline to submit an entry to the Digitizing Utilities Prize. There are many more dates, but that is by far the most important right now. In order to see all the dates, please review the prize rules and the timeline on HeroX. There will also be reminders on HeroX as an important date approaches. All right, and now we are on to submitting to the prize and what to submit. The first most important thing to read is the rules. Read it back to front and then probably read it again. Everything you'll need to submit is put forth in the rules document. The rules document can be found on HeroX for download. What to submit? If you have seen some of these American-made challenges before, this probably looks familiar to you. The first thing we want is a 90-second video. Then you will have a narrative that has a cover page. The narrative will answer 3 questions. You will also have 1 summary PowerPoint slide and letters of commitment or support, which is optional. For the 90-second video, this is really your opportunity to make a first impression. We're not looking for a Hollywood level production style, but I think a lot of times when reviewers go through these submission videos, the video is a really great first introduction to you and your team and your solution. So we encourage you to describe your team and why your team is uniquely qualified to solve the selected utilities problems, and also describe your proposed solution and why it's the best approach. As I said, production value doesn't need to be over the top, but please try to ensure that sound quality is good. But definitely remember, this is your first impression with the reviewers. So you want to put a good foot forward. This is also an opportunity to be creative. And this is something that we make public to everyone so they can see all the great teams and kind of a basic overview of the solutions that you're proposing. So if there's something that you don't want the public to know, don't say it in the video. And then there is the narrative with the 3 questions. Please go to the rules for more details, as there's a lot more detail in there. But we have 3 questions that we want you to answer in 2,500 words or less. You get to pick how the words are distributed across the 3 questions. So if you have a lot more to say for one category than the other, use your words where you want to. These 3 questions are: first, describe your team's past experience providing solutions for this or related problems. Number 2, tell us about your solution to the problem. Number 3, tell us how you will measure success of your approach. This portion is not public. Representatives from the utilities and industry experts will be reviewing the submission. They do all sign an NDA before they access your submission, so keep that audience in mind as you're writing. There is also a public-facing PowerPoint 1-slide submission summary that introduces your team and/or organization and your mission. There's no template, so competitors are free to present the information in any format. And there is also optional 1-page letters of support, intent, or commitment from other relevant entities to provide context. Letters of support from partners or others that are critical to the success of your proposed solution will likely increase your score. General letters of support from parties that are not critical to the execution of your solution will likely not factor into your score. Please do not submit multi-page letters. If you're working with a utility partner outside of the 2 identified for this prize, you must include a letter of support from your utility partner. Competitors in tracks 1 and 2 should not submit from the pre-identified utility partners, which is BPA and Dominion. Okay, so we wanted to just briefly show you the HeroX website. We refer to that a couple of times, and it might be a little confusing. So HeroX is a third-party site that we use to host all of the prize challenges, including this one. So you'll want to go to that website. You'll find the Digitizing Utility Prize, and this is where you'll be able to interact with the prize. You can put in your submission and interact with other competitors on the forum. This is where all the action happens. So this is what the HeroX page for Digitizing Utilities looks like. When you pull it up, you have to make an account on HeroX. If you don't already have one, you can do that by clicking on the Solve This Challenge button. We encourage you to go find the Digitizing Utilities prize, click that button to solve the challenge and become a follower of this page. That ensures that our team, as we post updates, like the recording of this webinar or the answers to any questions that come in, you'll get a notification. And you can also access all of that information. So go ahead and go to HeroX once we finish this webinar. Follow this challenge, become part of the community, and that will make sure that you're in the know and that you get those reminders leading up to January 26th. And when you're ready, you can also click the Solve This Challenge button to start your submission. You can start your submission at any time. You can save your progress throughout. You can submit your submission early, and then you can go back and edit it as many times as you want prior to the January deadline. And all of this will happen on HeroX. So what's next? Follow the challenge on HeroX, read those rules. The important information is covered way more in depth than we covered today in the rules document. and then put in your submission by January 26th. Also, if you know anyone who'd be a good applicant for this program, we're always looking for help to spread the word, so please direct them to this challenge. If you have any questions, we would love to take them in the chat, and I think we'll be answering those in just a minute. We will be answering all those also in written form and providing those on HeroX, so another reason to visit the HeroX website. We do have an email address for this prize, which is digitizingutilities.prize@nrel.gov. If you do have specific questions, however, I will tell you, if your question can be answered by reading the rules document, the response to that question will point you to the rules document. So please check that first and don't just email us right away. But we are here to help, and we want you to be successful in this process. But thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to seeing your submissions on January 26th. So now I'll open it up for any questions.
Great. The first question we received was earlier on. This is about track 3. The specific question is, will ISO be considered a utility, and are they eligible for partners? But in general, do you have any examples of existing utility partners that would qualify, or what guardrails are in place that would make it so you can fairly judge between these dissimilar projects?
Sarah, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, Rebecca, could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, let's start with what's an example of existing utility partners that would qualify for track 3 competitor identified challenge? And specifically, would ISO be considered a utility for track 3?
Sandra, I guess, do you have
Yeah, this is a better question for me to answer. Yes, an ISO I think would qualify. Really, it's any electricity provider. So utilities that are, you know, good examples are Dominion and BPA, because they're already partners on the other tracks. So really, you know, I think it's open to munis, co-ops, ISOs. It's both transmission, distribution. We tried to make it pretty broad. And the judging fairly between dissimilar projects, I think there's a list of criteria that's in the rules document that will be used to judge the projects. I think that second part might be better answered by Sarah, but that's all in the rules document.
Yeah, I would say too, I think for track 3, it's purposely open. So if you are a utility, you could be the team lead, or if you are someone that's currently partnered with a utility or have a connection with one, you could be the team lead. So I think what you'll see with a lot of these prizes is it's fairly open to allow as many people to participate as possible.
Okay. Thank you. For track 2, did we hear correctly that this track only allows for people to be physically on site?
This is a question for Kevin if he's still on, but if
Yep,
not,
I'm still here.
I can try and answer. Great.
No, you don't have to be physically on site, but you must reside within the United States. We will provide you with the digital access required to work inside of our systems. And it will also require depending on what we do, it will also require background checks for everyone that is accessing things. This is the same process that we use for all of our employees and contractors.
Okay, thank you. For track 1 and 2, would the utilities be working with multiple teams to help submit the proposals? And how would they maintain confidentiality of the different solutions?
That's a good question. I would say for the first phase that we're in right now, I would kind of view the utilities maybe more as a resource rather than submitting the proposal alongside you. We will be organizing in the next month or so, probably another opportunity for you to interact more, ask questions of the utilities, get those answered. Our utility partners will sign NDAs when they go through to review your submissions, and so we'll maintain confidentiality of the non-public information you submit.
Thank you. Another question about these different tracks. Can a team participate in both track 1 and track 2? Or would they need to form different teams, different HeroX entries to participate in different tracks?
A team could submit in the first phase to both track 1 and track 2. You could be the same team, but you would need to submit 2 separate submissions, 1 to each track.
Okay, thank you. For track 2 specifically, can you expand on what types of ambient data are available?
There's only 2 modalities of data that we have available. Within those 2 modalities, there are variations in resolution. So we have synchrophaser data that reports at either 30 or 60 hertz. We also have waveform data that reports somewhere between just under 1,000 and 10,000 hertz. And these higher frequency sampling rates are not necessarily continuous. They're based on need. So we may, based on the needs of an analysis, we'll set up waveform capture to capture continuously for, say, an hour or a day or a week, but they are not streaming in nature. Whereas the synchrophasers are streaming. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a 4-year archive of the synchrophaser data.
Okay, and along those lines, is there sample data that could be used from the internet, or this is data you're providing to demonstrate a proof of concept?
No, we will work with Dominion data only.
So Kevin, sorry I interrupted you. I think the data that Kevin has for his utility is not publicly available. Similar types of data, such as synchrophaser data, are you can get some publicly available sets. And some of those are provided in the DOE resources. That was just updated on HeroX. A couple different links to things. One is the grid signature library, which has some waveform data and synchrophaser data. And in addition, the links there is the FOA 1861 big synchrophaser analysis. There's some results from folks the awardees from that prize, that FOA, and some of them have created some methods and tools to create synthetic data that is not quite the same thing as real synchrophaser data, but as close as you'll get with a, to create a large data set publicly available. So those are some resources.
And then along those lines, can teams supplement that provided data from these utility partners with the publicly available data on HeroX or elsewhere?
Preferably not for Dominion.
Okay. Let's see. So on to track 3, this question asks if we could get a little bit more details on track 3. There's not a section in the rules doc about track 3. Can you expand on that any more?
Sure, I can take this one. So regardless of which track you apply to, the rules document outlines the parts of the submission package that you should have. So you should follow the same criteria in there. Because track 3 is inviting you to work with your own utility partner and propose your own solution, there is no additional information in the appendices about that.
Okay. Thank you. How much of an impact is team size? Are solo teams discouraged?
Again, the scoring criteria does have a section on team and capabilities. And so I'd encourage you to refer to the rules document and those criteria. I don't think there's a preference for how those skills and expertise are covered, as long as you meet those criteria and scoring requirements.
Okay. Can international students studying in US universities participate in track 1 or any of these tracks?
We encourage you to refer to the rules and the eligibility section there, which outlines university participation and individual participation and citizenship requirements.
Okay.
Or I can add on to that. For Dominion, if you are an individual, the answer would be no. You need an organization to back you from a legal liability perspective. So like we would have to establish a CEII NDA with the individual and their institution. So you would have to do it through your university, not as an individual.
Okay, thanks. That actually answers another one of our questions. And this is kind of along the same topic. For a group participating as an academic institution, does every member need to be a part of that university, or can we have a member outside of the university, such as university alumni, but working with a separate company?
I think that's a relationship that you would have to work with the university if they're okay being the submitter with external people. That's fine.
Okay. Do these teams need to have experience with utilities or grids data?
No. But any kind of, I mean, I don't want to answer for Tony. So I apologize for dominating the responses here. But I would point the potential participants back to that list that I had on my second slide. Experience is not required, but there are skills and perspectives and capabilities that map well over to the domain. So for instance, if you don't have an engineering background, but maybe you went and got a master's degree in machine learning, this is not useful. You don't have any physical context for how these systems actually work. You've got to ground it in something real, given the nature of the work that we're doing. It's not a purely data-driven specialty. So we're not going to disqualify anyone for not having worked with utility before, but we are going to look for that kind of physical intuition, specialized knowledge that I alluded to.
I would just piggyback off that and say, I think one of the goals that we have with these American-made challenges is for maybe people that have adjacent skills but haven't actually applied them to this space to have the opportunity to apply and work in this space and see what happens. So I definitely, as Kevin said, it's definitely not, you won't be ruled out, but I'd encourage you to highlight what your relevant kind of skill set is or how your current skills kind of transfer to this space in your submission.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Tony. I was just going to echo a lot of what Kevin said. And I appreciate him answering the questions. A lot of his answers apply similarly to track 1 and BPA's opinion on it. I think maybe we're a little bit more, I don't want to say lenient, but maybe seeing our challenge as being a little bit more data driven than maybe what Kevin is looking at. But I do also want to highlight that without a real understanding of the physical nature of the systems that we're looking at, the solution won't be grounded in a lot of the reality that we see sort of day to day from how these things operate. So a lot of what Kevin said would be echoed by track 1 and BPA.
Okay, thank you. How do we communicate with the track 1 or 2 utility companies for additional questions or comments? Will you guys have office hours or take meetings?
We encourage you to post questions for the track 1 or 2 utilities on HeroX. We'll also post on HeroX a couple of opportunities during the submission phase for direct interaction with them.
I'll ask gently for a tutorial for Dominion on how to be able to respond to those questions on the platform. We're happy to do so, just need to be pointed in the right direction.
Yep, we'll work with you, Kevin, on making
Okay.
sure that any questions that are posted come your way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. If the solution developed becomes a marketable solution, would there be a revenue sharing opportunity?
The answer is not no. But let's say that it's a machine learning model, which I seriously doubt that we'll create one of those. That would be our intellectual property. Now, if it's more software oriented, then I would say that there's a revenue sharing possibility. We have a business development group that can help facilitate those kinds of things. But we also have our own intellectual property that will be contributing as sort of a starting point. So the waters will get a bit muddy. Just throwing that out there.
And I would answer it as TBD from our perspective.
Okay, there is another question about if one team member is not a citizen, but the rest of the team qualifies, would the team still be able to participate? I feel like we've kind of answered that. Is there any other thoughts that anyone would like to add?
The
Yeah.
non-citizen has to reside in the United States.
Yeah, same with BPA.
Okay, that is all of the questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining. I think we're gonna wrap it up now. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to seeing all of your submissions. And thank you for your time.